In this video, I'm going to be discussing the 5 most common sexual fantasies that women have. And I was inspired to do this video because one of my most successful videos that I've published recently is all about doggy style and why women love doggy style. So I thought to do an extension of that with respect to fantasies. So that's what I'm going to get into today in this video, is the 5 most common fantasies that women have. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kane. I'm the Silver Bachelor. This channel is 100% dedicated to dating advice for older guys. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification button because I'm dropping a video every day. All right. The 5 most common fantasies, sexual fantasies that women have. And I'm just going to get straight into it. Number 1. And some of these might be a surprise and some of them may not, but number 1 is being dominated. And I will explain this. So when I say being dominated, I'm talking about things like pulling her, again, this all has to be consensual, by the way, and you have to ease into this. Because if you do any of these things too quickly, she might get completely turned off. So you have to maybe even talk about this in advance and maybe be kind of gentle, but you're like turning up the heat of the oven, if that makes sense. So, but in general, this is number 1, and I agree with this, and I've dated a lot. I've been single for 2.5 years, and I know a thing or two about this now. So, being dominated, things like pulling her hair, again, you have to build up to this. Not just out of the blue pulling her hair. Maybe she's into that, but most are not. So pulling her hair, choking. Now, when I say choking, I'm not talking about your hand right by the windpipe where you're like closing off the air. You have to lift your hand, cup your hand around the windpipe so you're not choking her windpipe, but rather you're squeezing the neck right here, right? Or even the back of the neck, right? Where you're grabbing the back of the neck. So choking, pulling hair, even grabbing her head, and a little bit of deep throat. Okay, this is going to be a little TMI in this video, but why not? So deep throat, a little bit of slapping. Again, you have to talk about this stuff. And gradually, if you all of a sudden slap a woman's face in the middle of sex and you haven't talked about that, man, she's probably going to kick your ass out of her place. So I'm just giving examples that if you're talking about it and you get an idea of what she's into, right? BDSM, that's another thing in terms of example of being dominated. And also, I dated this one girl for a little while, and she kind of had a quasi-rape fantasy where completely it was all about domination, right? So being dominated, that's number 1, being dominated. And I'm just taking a look at my notes. Number 2 is a threesome. And studies have shown that 57% of women are down and fantasize about having a threesome. Now, here's the kicker. Just because I say a threesome, and I know you guys right away, you're thinking, oh, another girl. Not necessarily. That fantasy, that threesome fantasy, might be also with a dude. But it's basically her, you, and either a woman or a dude. I have not done this before, ever. I've never had a threesome. It's not really important to me. But I have been asked about it. And I've been asked from both sides. They're like, hey, would you be down with another girl? Well, who wouldn't? And then they're like, well, would you be down with another guy? And I'm like, let me think about that because and I just did this with my fingers and I'm thinking swords crossing. Nope. No touching another dude, no kissing another dude. It would have to be a very specific thing. I'd have to know the guy and we'd have to have an agreement. Like he'd have to be straight, like I'm straight. He'd have to be straight. I don't know, there's factors that could get complicated. But just because a woman says she's into threesomes, you need to clarify what you're talking about. You're talking about another woman or you're talking about a dude, okay? All right, so that's number 2. Number 3, this one's fun. Public sex. Now, this I have done a few times, not that many, but So, for example, if you have a balcony in your place and it's nighttime, she might be down to doing some stuff on the balcony where you you could see other people, but they can't necessarily see you just because it's so dark. Or maybe I this apartment I'm in Atlanta, as well as the apartment I had back in Canada, the windows, you can't see it in this video, but the windows are huge. Okay, they're basically floor to ceiling, huge windows, and you have no idea whether I've had somebody here in my apartment or in Ottawa, no idea how many women have been fascinated with seeing this huge window and wanting me to have sex with them against the window or near the window. So that's another example. I guess it's the thrill of thinking there might be an audience out there, or the thought of maybe potentially getting caught. But some public naughtiness is definitely a fantasy that most women have. So that's number 3. Number 4, sex with total strangers. So I haven't had sex with a total stranger in a sense, but I have had a couple one night stands, and maybe this is part of it, where they don't really know that person, but the excitement mostly when they're traveling. Okay, so this is where I've had the one night stands, is where I've traveled before and visiting the city. They're traveling and we end up meeting, and it's this excitement of, I don't really know this person, I'm not going to see them again, kind of thing, and you get it on. I've only had a few one night stands, not very many, but that's typically when it's happened, when in a traveling kind of situation and I was a stranger. So number 5, not really saving the best for last. This one's a little weird, but depends on what you're into. Number 5 is pain. So I've had a couple girlfriends in the past where they were into pain. So when I say pain, this is what I'm talking about. There's a sex shop here in Atlanta called Tokyo Valentino. And I went there when I was dating someone. And one time I was looking at one wall in the sex shop, and she was looking at something else as well. And so then I turn around to see what she's looking at, and she's got this like stick with a like a hand paddle on the end of it. And but this was not like a typical ass slapping paddle. It had studs on it. At first I thought the studs were like smooth surface, and I touched them and they were like prickly studs, like sharp studs. And she was enamored by this thing. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, "Oh, do you like that toy?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think I'd want to have this." And then I looked at her and I said, "You realize if I smack you on the ass once with this, you're going to bleed." She's like, "Well, I, I think I might like it." And then I said to her, "Well, you realize you're going to scar, and you're never going to be able to wear a bikini again unless it's showing all your, or like covering your scars." And she was Brazilian, and she liked to wear the Brazilian bikini. And then she changed her mind about it. But this was just an example of, eventually we were not compatible because of the level of pain that she liked. She liked to bleed as well. And that was fucking weird to me. So, but there are women that are into pain as one of their sexual fantasies. So I want to hear from you though in the comments of, is there anything that I've missed that you would add, and what's been kind of your weirdest experience that you've come across. All right. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.